Hey, welcome back to this mini lecture. It is on the literature review, part two. Number three, identify themes, debates, and gaps in your lit review. Why would you do this? You want to try to understand the connections and relationships between your sources. Unfortunately, they don't necessarily are congruent and all come together. There are going to be like little differences between them, and you want to make sure that you connect them. This step will help you work out the structure of your lit review and show how your research will contribute to existing knowledge. Um, if there are significant gaps and like something that's never been studied before, your lit review can help show how your research fits into that. When you're doing this, some ways to identify themes, gaps, and debates. There's a couple of things to look for. Different trends and patterns in the various theories, methods, or results you're looking at. Do any approaches become more or less popular over time? Perhaps you'll find an approach that was popular 20 years ago that's gone out of disfavor. Potentially, you could bring it back into the mainstream. Themes. What questions or concepts recur across the literature? You'll find that when you read different fields, certain theorists and ideas are said over and over again. They have staying power, they're important. Make sure that you have an eye out for those. Debates, conflicts, contradictions. Where do sources disagree? Again, oftentimes in specific fields, there are specific issues that people cannot agree on. There can be multiple schools of thought. Try to find out what those are. They help to illuminate the really key parts of a specific field. D. Pivotal publications. Influential theories, studies that change the field's direction. Are there any of those? Most fields, there's usually a paper or two that really changes the direction of the entire field. Try to find out what those are. They're usually referred to in following papers. And finally, E, gaps. What is missing from the literature? Are there any weaknesses that must be addressed? If you find, like again, when you're looking at the debates, conflicts, contradictions, etc., is there something that people just have not figured out yet? Ideally, your lit review can help with that. Number four, outline the structure. Are various approaches to organizing the lit review's body. They have a rough idea of your strategy before you write. Again, these things will help to structure your writing so that it becomes more useful. Depending on your lit review's length, you can combine several of the following strategies. So there are multiple strategies that you can follow that I'll be listing through, such as thematic and chronologically. Perhaps you find that initially you have a thematic view. There's various themes that come across, and then you might find over time, chronologically, that those themes organize over time. A. 4A. Chronological. It is by far the simplest approach. Basically, you do things from beginning to end over time. You trace the development of your topic over time. Again, from the beginning of that idea, that theory, and then trace it as it goes over time. If you choose this strategy, do not simply list and summarize sources in order. Anyone could do that. It'll read like a Wikipedia page. Don't do that. Again, maybe find literature review, discuss it, and it's more seminal pieces of theory that occur over time. Try to analyze patterns, turning points, and key debates that have shaped the direction of the field. When you read across a field, you'll find that some papers are just not as significant or useful as other ones. Try to find out whatever the key patterns, turning points, key debates, etc. That should help. Interpret the how and the why certain developments occurred. If you can do that, if you can interpret how and why these developments occurred, that will show that you have insight into what's going on in the phenomenon that you're studying. 4B, thematic. If you find recurring themes, organize your literature review into sections and address different aspects of the topic. For example, if you're doing a paper on migrant health outcomes, some key themes could include healthcare policy, language barriers, cultural attitudes, legal status, and economic access. So again, you could find various themes and organize your structure in thematically, according to themes. C, methodological. So there'll be a specific methodology that your paper will follow, and various papers will follow. It's looking at those methodologies. The sources from fields with various research methods compare results from different approaches. For example, you could look at what results have emerged in qualitative versus quantitative research. So those are different methodologies, quantitative and qualitative research. 2, you could discuss how the topic is approached by empirical versus theoretical scholarship. Empirical is measurable. Theoretical is more like abstract, like theory. And 3, divide the literature into sociological, historical, and cultural sources. Again, these are just different ways to divide your topic up into ways that make sense to you and to your reader. Theoretical. Lit review can be foundation for theoretical framework. You use this to discuss theories, models, and concept definitions. You might want to try to argue for the relevance of a specific theoretical approach, or combine various theoretical concepts to create a framework for your research. So again, think about the theoretical framework that's within your paper. This might be a little bit complex, especially for those of you who are just starting to write lit reviews, which is many, if not most, if not all of you. Finally, write your literature review. That is really the ultimate thing. You need to physically write it. The literature itself, the review has 3 main sections: the introduction, the body, conclusion. And we'll be talking about each of those in a second. What you include in each section depends on the objective of your literature review. First, with introduction, clearly establish the focus and purpose of the lit review. Give the background of the topic and its importance. Discuss the scope of the literature you will review. For example, you might want to reference the time period of your sources, and you want to state your objective. Ultimately, from your introduction, what new insight will you draw from the literature? Have that drive your writing of your introduction. Body. Definitely, because the body is really long and can be quite complex and wordy. You want to divide the body into subsections to help you organize your writing and to help the reader organize their reading. Use a subheading for each theme, time period, or methodological approach. You might want to use the following tips when writing your body. Summarize and synthesize. Make an overview of main points of each source, such as you've been doing with your annotated bibliography. Combine these points into a coherent whole. Analyze and interpret. Do not paraphrase other researchers. Add your own interpretations where possible. Discuss significance of findings in relation to the literature as a whole. Critically evaluate. You might want to mention the source strengths and weaknesses of your sources. They have strengths, they have weaknesses. Definitely just make sure that you highlight each of those. And finally, write well-structured paragraphs. Use transitions and topic sentences to draw connections, comparisons, and contrasts. And finally, after all that, your final section is conclusion. Summarize the key findings from the literature and emphasize your findings' significance. Why is what you did important? That was a literature review, part 2. Thanks so much for watching. Hope to see you again soon.